on another edition of World Bank Kingdom Conversation. Yes, as always, it's such a pleasure to be here. As always, coming here to have wonderful conversation, insightful conversations, life-changing, life-transforming conversation. As always, Kayode Sanni is here again, and so good to be here. Like I said. And welcome. This is the World Bank Kingdom Conversation. This is what we like to do every Wednesday right here at the Bridge Network City Church, and trying to sit down together just to share in these moments together, share stories, connect with one another, and have moments that help us to advance, have moments that help our lives to transform for the better. And as you can see, that the setup here is different today. Special times call for special, devices, and that's why we had to do this here. And as always, and as you can see, that I'm here seated in the presence of the one and only Dr. Tunde Adegbola right here, and that's why we had to do the setup, because of course you know that time is very key in this moment, and we just had to grab him, just grab him, say, please. I was telling you that thankfully you are a musician. You and he's looking into your story that we learned from last year when you celebrated your 70th birthday. You spoke about how you played the guitar and all of that. When we even say something is out of tune, what does that even mean?
When there is a need for many things to work together, there is a possibility of reinforcement, and there's a possibility of one effort destroying the other. If we want to pull a heavy object, we can deploy two people to pull it. These two people can both pull in one direction. The alternative is that each of the two people are pulling in two different directions. This implies that their efforts are not in tune. But it gets more complex when you go to phenomena like music, in which various people are producing sounds owing to various frequencies, and these frequencies have a way of working together. There's a specific way by which various frequencies can work together. So when you bring frequencies that bring about what we describe as discord, then you cannot say that the situation has produced something that is in tune. So when you say something is in tune, it is because all the components that are supposed to work together are working on the same phase, on the same frequency, on the same understanding of achieving a common purpose.
Amazing. And the reason why I asked that was so that we can even set an antecedent upon which the other conversation will start in. So looking into your own life, and it's beautiful because you have lived 70 years.
To the glory of God.
Yeah, to the glory of God. And you've had to experience different moments in your life, different experiences. I think to start with is to say, from the moment you had an awareness of where you are aware that something was out of tune in your own life, what was your life like before then?
Well, I think every child starts life in aspiration. It's been argued that children walk because their parents are walking. Otherwise, they'll continue to crawl. They see that their parents are walking, and they then aspire to be like others. And even though that process may not be one that children are very much aware of, it can be a time of frustration. But I happen to be a person that remembers much earlier than people think you can remember. I remembered the frustration of walking, of trying to walk and failing.
Wow.
And from little experiences like that, you have this thing about you are trying to be like others and you are not succeeding. And that's a manifestation of your life not being in tune. But the moment you are able to achieve that, then things change. Then you see that it was just a temporary setback, and you can make up for it. So when somebody aspires to be like others, and there are challenges, that's the beginning of an experience of not being in tune, because you want to do things like other people do things. So from very very early childhood, I'd experienced things like this, or you want to, people are playing some game, maybe you are aiming a ball into a particular hoop, and everybody's able to do it, but you are not able to do it. You wonder why. Or even kicking football. You see grown-ups, they kick a football and it goes very far, and you try to kick and you miss, and you wonder, rather than kick the football, you end up on your butt. So all these were things that you can translate as experiences of being not in tune. But as you grow up, you then find out that things don't get in tune by themselves.
Things don't get in tune by themselves.
No, you put it in tune. You put things in tune. That's why you cannot buy a guitar, play a piano, even though a piano is sold tuned, but after some time it distunes. You have to employ a tuner to play, particularly when you want to, maybe you want to have a major concert. You invite a tuner to come and look at the piano and ensure that it's in tune. So normally things, when there is a need for synergy, when there's a need to do things together such that efforts can accumulate, you don't do it haphazardly. You have it, and things don't get in tune by themselves. You have to arrange for them to be for them to be in tune. That is why we have government, because each individual can be pulling in different directions, but we have government to synergize, to bring the efforts of everybody in a society to pull in the same direction.
I'm really grateful for all of these directions that you're taking us to. Now I hear synergy. I hear the fact that things don't get in tune by themselves. But just before we get to that, one of the things you also made mention earlier was this aspiration that every child wants to, and then you got to a point where you wanted to do it, but it's not working. At that moment, what's usually the feeling like? What was that feeling like for you when you realized that there was this aspiration, you wanted to do it, but you weren't able to do that?
There's a general feeling of failure, a feeling of why me? Why can't I do it? Why is everybody doing it and I can't do it? But thank God that God has placed in the human mind, the human makeup, that quest to continue. Because you have no choice. As a child, you want to move from place to place. You see something, children like bright colors. You see something far from you. You want to get towards it. They start by just pointing and just questing. Then they find that they could crawl, but they find that crawling is slow. Then they find that but everybody else works. Why can't I walk? And they keep trying and trying and trying until you get there. Now, at that time, children are not as aware.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of nature built into it to make it work. The important thing is to take advantage of that experience when you encountered some frustration of not being able to achieve what everybody is doing, and then later on achieving it, to apply to your life later on. When you are aspiring for things, maybe you are in school and you are not doing well, you are trying to get to acquire some skill and you are not achieving it, to know that there have been things in the past that you have quested for and you didn't get easily, but you got ultimately. To know that, as it is said in Yoruba, when a horse flips you off its back, what you do is get back on it. So these are principles that we need to imbibe to be able to make sense of the life we live.
Still entering into your own experience because the soul of everything here is to be able to draw lessons from your own life, because 70 years is a long time. I mean, that you can't buy that in the market. But then, looking from childhood into teenagehood into adulthood, and all the things you said now is that being able to, yes, the awareness part was where I wanted to pick up from. Being a child, I will assume that a child is not usually aware. But to the point, so from the moment where you were aware of yourself, either as a teenager or from where you became a young adult, when you had that awareness, what was that now you told yourself that you were going to do to ensure that you'll be able to, even if when things are going off, I can still bring things back?
Well, like I told you, well, I'm a rather strange person. I was aware of the frustrations of working when I was a child.
Wow.
I remember it clearly. I knew I had those frustrations. And like I said, as I grew up later in life as a teenager, I mean, when I was transiting from secondary school to university, I had challenges. I took my school SAT, O levels, we took all sorts of exams. I took all those exams 6 times before I went from secondary school to university. I have 6 certificates at that level, all sorts of, because I didn't, maybe I needed one subject which I didn't get. I went back to do it and something else didn't work. Yeah. So I just kept doing it and doing it and doing it until I succeeded. Probably, like I said, my experience of the frustrations of not working and then working maybe had prepared me to take care of it. I remember clearly when I finished secondary school, I took my school certificate West African school certificate examination in December 1970. Wow. In those days, December 1972. In those days, the exams took place in December. And there was a misalignment between secondary school calendar and tertiary institution calendar, such that every people who finished secondary school, those days we had higher school, A-level. People who finished their A-levels had to wait almost a year to go into university because they took the A-level exams in December, but university entry is in September. So you waited almost 1 year. So in order to realign the secondary school calendar with university calendar, my set in 1972 was the last set that took exams in December. So the set after me took their exams in June. So they had a shorter period of time. So when the results of my December exams came out, I had already proceeded to higher school. And in lower secondary school, well, if I say lower secondary school, you might think I'm thinking of first, second, third year. No, I'm talking of ordinary level. We call it ordinary level.
Okay.
And then advanced level. In ordinary level, we wore shorts. Oh. Now, when you go to advanced level, we wore trousers. And I had started wearing trousers. And results came out. And I didn't do very well. And I had to go back to repeat. Remember I told you that we were the last set of December. So by the time results came out, it was too late to register for the June exam. So not only did I have to go back from trousers to shorts, I had to go back to the people who were in the third year when I was in the final year.
Wow.
I couldn't go to those who were there. So I went all the way back and just started it all over again. and just went on and on and on. So we had, you'll take December exam, then there was January O-level exam from the University of Cambridge, then they had now the June exam from West Africa Examination Council. And in order to kind of create a kind of balance for the adjustments that was taking place, the December exam still continued for a few years. So I took the first December exams, took the January exams, missed the June exams, then took the next December exams, took the next January exams, and in order not to miss the June exams, I also registered for the June exams. So that's how I came out with 6 certificates. But in doing all this, you can't believe it, I didn't miss a year. Of course, those who were at A levels carried on, but then by the time I got the O levels right, I was admitted into university through the preliminary examination scheme. So that by the time I got into the first year in the university, my mates who went the A levels route, we just met again.
Wow.
In the first year in the university. So these are experiences that have convinced me that temporary setbacks do not matter. That you can always realign. You can always tune your life if it sounds as though it's gone out of tune.
Amazing. This is intriguing. But then something just popped up now to say, thankfully, you said you are a straight person and you were always aware. But for someone who must have had to gone far to see certain effects, what are those things that will typically define a life that is out of tune? I don't know if you can help us with certain examples, at least from your experience, from the stories you've met, from everyone you've probably interacted with. What do you think are those parameters that begin to look as though something is just off about someone's life?
Well, I recently came across a young man who I thought could be helped to get on with life. He had a difficulty with paying for exams, and I thought maybe I could help get friends to bring money together to pay for his exams. And the mother said, well, he's not a very bright student, so paying for the exams is not enough. We also have to pay for people who can help him take the exam, who can basically cheat the system so that he will get his certificate. I mean, that for me, the fact that somebody is declared not a bright student is not misalignment. The misalignment, the being out of tune, is thinking that you can dodge the system. Because it's going to dog you for a long time. You are going to keep trying. And rather than addressing the fundamental problem, you'll be trying to work around the problem. And you may find out in the end that it's a total waste of time. I was involved in another situation in war in which a young man finished his school certificate examination and did jam, did everything. Not that he didn't do well, but he was out-competed. There are a lot more people trying to get into universities than there are university positions. And he couldn't get in. He scored lower than the cutoff. And the mother was advised, well, maybe you should let this boy go in with, let him go and do NC. He said, no, I reject in Jesus' name. My own son is not going to do NC when everybody else is doing degree. Well, unfortunately, we were on this for about 3 years before the son finally did NC and proceeded to degree. So if she had understood that doing NCE is not a terminal process, the child will have saved 3 years.
Mhm.
So this is the kind of effect of a life being out of tune. Because it is not so much that there is an error, there is a difficulty, there is a barrier, there is a hurdle, but how do you respond to the hurdle? That is what determines whether you are in tune or you're out of tune. As long as you are thinking you can dodge the system, it means you are not in tune with the system. You are not in tune with what society has determined as the standards of getting things done. It is not enough that you hold a certificate in your hand. A person doesn't get healed by touching their chest with a stethoscope. That's not what heals you. That's just a process. So having a piece of paper in your hand does not qualify you, does not in itself qualify you for what the piece of paper says you are qualified for. So as long as you don't understand that, you are not in tune.
So for what you said now is that there's a system that runs life.
Yes.
There's a system that runs life, and when you don't work in sync with that system,
you're out of tune.
So looking at your own life now, what are the systems that have helped you to stay in tune? What systems were you able to create or to develop or to identify to say, this is what I'm going to be building my life around so that I can be in tune?
I think for me, the most important thing has been the grace of God to realize that temporary setbacks do not matter. Because I've had very many setbacks. I've told you one. By the time I started raising children, and some of my children were said to be dyslexic. It was then I realized that I was actually dyslexic.
Really?
And that my father was dyslexic.
Wow.
Because some of the things that people did with ease that I could not achieve, I didn't understand that I had a serious hand-eye coordination problem. That's why my handwriting is atrocious. I was saved by the computer. The fact that I can type. Well, I had to learn to type. I was one of the earliest people to use the computer amongst my peers, because this was I cannot stand arithmetic. I was the first person to own a calculator in my class in university because I was tired of slide rule. I hated the logarithm tables. So I went for a calculator, very expensive. I had to save for it. I had to forgo some meals to buy it. But these were things that I needed to do to make up for my deficiencies. So it is important to be aware of your deficiencies and not paper over it. Face it. You have to face. If you are deficient, you have to face it. If you limp because one of your leg is shorter, add an inch to your shoe sole. Don't try to pretend otherwise. Do something about it. You will discover that the so-called deficiencies you have might make for other advantages. When you see somebody who uses their hands to move themselves, you see that they have big biceps because the non-use of the legs has transferred to use of their arms. So any time there seems to be a deficiency in one area, you find that it may translate as an advantage in other area. You have to seek to understand and identify this so that you can build on your advantages without allowing your disadvantages to hold you back.
Man, this is so profound. First is that there's got to be an awareness of deficiency and being able to own up to it. But then this issue of awareness keeps coming back again. For some, especially for young people that may be seeing this, what does it even mean to be aware? And how can people become more self-aware?
To be aware, you have to take notice of your environment. And you have to be truthful to yourself. If your friend does something with ease and you can't do it, approach the friend. Say, how do you do this? And if each time he does it, you find that he does it with ease, but you can't do it, then tell yourself, I seem to be weak in this area. How can I make up for it? I remember when I was young and we were in a fine arts class, they say, okay, draw something nice. And people just draw it. I said, how can you draw that? How did you come about drawing this? I knew it. But thank God to computers too. When computers came, I started earning money as a graphic artist because I didn't need the hand-eye coordination anymore. I could just tell the computer to give me a circle or give me a triangle or give me a square and put the square on top of the circle. I could just move things around. So this is part of what the awareness did to me. But the question you are really asking is, how do you become aware? The most important aspect of awareness is being truthful to yourself. The concept of positive confession is powerful. It's an attitude of don't accept being less. But there's a side to it that is just mere denial. You must, in living positively, in saying good things about yourself, in expressing yourself in positive notions, you must be also capable of overcoming denial into being real, into doing things that need to be done to be able to overcome deficiencies. But even when we look at it, there are certain things that are not normal for human beings to do. For example, really and truly, playing music is not normal. But when you start trying, when you start working at it, particularly, say, the keyboard, for example, it gets to a point that in order for you to play a sequence of notes, you do not think about the sequence of notes one at a time. Your muscles have memorized how to play it. So all your brain is doing is telling your muscle, play that scale. And the muscle knows how to play the scale. And if you happen to have had proper music training, you will have been trained how to play such scales efficiently. So these are some of the areas in which you now find that some of the things that human beings do very, very well, I don't think human beings were created to do them, but we adapted ourselves. Imagine a woman carrying firewood on her head and not touching it, and has managed to contort her muscles, the muscles of her neck, such that every shift of the load, she shifts in antipathy to make up for it. So these are some of the things that tell us that what we think are deficiencies are just challenges to overcome. So be true to yourself. Even though you are being positive, do not allow positive confession to manifest as denial.
Beautiful, sir. There's another side to this deficiency thing. Thankfully, you've helped us to identify that being aware in itself is about being truthful, in noticing your world and then being truthful. There's another part to it which I feel I also feel that some are aware, but the courage to accept that truth for themselves is not there. How do we help people in this category to say you've seen the truth about yourself, right? Then there's that part of owning up to it to say this is a problem. How do I do that? Especially at a time when the world is everything is moving fast. So if, for example, there's a parent and there's a child who is dyslexic, and then because the child just has to move through the class, there's that process where that thing is not acknowledged as a result of the fact that it might slow down or for whatever reason. And I feel that many of that also happens to us as adults, that because of what we are trying to achieve or the way the world is going, trying to meet up with this, trying to meet up with that, we don't sit down to actually own up to that part as a result of lack of courage to fully embrace the fact that, hey, this part of my life is deficient and I need to face it.
I think that is where the role of parents comes in. Because parents have gone through the life that a child is living at the moment, parents have a responsibility to carefully consider the circumstances of their children and advise them accordingly. The first thing that parents must know is that all children are not the same. So one solution will not work for all children. One child can be different from the other. If parents do not accept this and detect and accept it, then there will be a problem. Parents have to encourage their children not to sidetrack, not to sidestep what they need to do. A child does not necessarily need to move from one class to the other with those who are in the same class as he. He might need one extra year to get to that level. Now, when parents now try to manipulate system to say, let him go, his mates have gone ahead, there's a problem there.
That's working against the system also.
That's working against the system. So what to do is allow your child to go through the process. Ensure that the child is not being victimized. Ensure that the child is not being assessed. And once that is taken care of, then don't create shortcuts for your children. And don't push your children so hard. You shouldn't spend more than 4 years in secondary school. You should be able to do this at that time. All these, take the exam early. Yeah, it's okay to take exams early just to practice. Even if your child passes the exam well at an age that is not the norm, don't be too eager to make him or her jump, because there are other elements of life beyond the academic. There is the emotional, which the child might be academically sound, but not emotionally adequate. So when you go and throw the child in a university where the child looks to the left and to the right and doesn't see mommy and bursts into tears, where is mommy? Meanwhile, he's still scoring 100%. You have now thrown the child in a situation where he or she may be coping academically, but not coping emotionally. And then that is where the issue of peer pressure, negative peer pressure, comes, because there's positive peer pressure too. Negative peer pressure and all that coming. So parents have to be very, very careful and recognize the peculiarities of their children and guide them accordingly. Also, positive peer pressure is important in retuning yourself or attuning yourself to what goes on. They say, show me your friend and I'll tell you who you are. Keep good company. Company that can enhance you, not company that can draw you back, not company that can confuse you. And so for any young person going through difficulties, not being able to cope, do not see yourself as a failure. Just see yourself as somebody taking a different route as the others. And you will be really fortunate if your parents, if your church, if the society around you realize who you are and are able to help you to achieve your purpose.
Thank you for that one. I think again is to look into your own life now to say, now that you are here at this age and at this season of your own life, how do you stay in tune? What helps you stay in tune? Though you've given us some various examples, but this season of your life, at this stage of your own life, how do you stay in tune? What helps you stay in tune? What helps you to realign? To align and realign.
Staying in tune is not a function of age. There is a way that 30-year-olds are in tune. There's a different way that 40-year-olds are in tune. 60, 50-year-olds, 60. So whatever age you are, there is a way of being in tune in that age. The way of being in tune when I was 60 is different from the way of being in tune at that time, 70. Now that I am 70, the utmost thing on my mind is, well, 70, between 60 and 70 is when people retire from work. And depending on the way you plan your life, do you still expect income to come when you are not working? So that is the kind of tuning and retuning that I'm doing now, because I've spent the last 30 years of my life in self-employment. So I do not expect any pension or gratuity, all these things from some from government. So for me now, the challenge of staying in tune is how to take care of myself when I am no more able to run around and do things. Even I see that the more I grow, the more challenging it is for me even to think, to sit down and do work. When I sit down to do work, I sometimes feel, why not go and sleep? So every post in life demands being in tune with that post. And blessed is the man that knows how to remain in tune at each post of life.
Just as we begin to wrap up things quickly, I think there was something I missed earlier in the conversation, because you started off with the fact that young people have this aspiration, but there's also something that also happens that I think that happens for some of us. There's this aspiration as young people, but in the middle of all of that, there seems to be something that just gets off tangent. Someone, for example, someone experiences a major loss, and as a result of that, the focus now shifts to how to recover as against the other things that you started with, to say, these are the things that I really love to do. For that kind of person, speaking in terms of aspirations and finding ways to get back to where one is, even for any stage, because we also get to hear stories of how someone is maybe probably 40 and then they're now learning how to go back to what they really wanted to do and all of that. What's your own advice for that kind of person?
Well, life is full of surprises. Sometimes things will happen that will throw you off your tangent, throw you off your locus, the path you are plotting for yourself. Things will happen. But we need to be reassured that the world that God created is not an unforgiving world. As much as it sounds as though an opportunity once lost can never be regained. Yes, it is true. That opportunity can never be regained. Other opportunities can come. So when things happen, let's say for example, you lost your parent, you lose your parents. Somebody who's lost their parents may think this is the end of life. May start, but I had the news recently. I had the story recently of a young lady who is in a particular school, like A levels training, and because she'd lost her parents, she is able to attend that school by formally teaching the level below her in the school. So there's always a way. There's something somewhere that can be used. And I'm not trying to oversimplify the problems of life, because they could be really, really debilitating and distracting, and they may delay you, they may distract you from your purpose. But my experience is that there's always a way out. There's always a way of escape. So when negative things happen, we should not brood on it. We should accept that it has happened. We should look for ways of mending the situation, not dodging the situation.
Accepting that it has happened.
Accepting that it has happened and look for ways. I mean, what is it a calamity that a person graduates 3 years after he should have graduated? Life, you have a life of 70, 80, 90, 100 years, and you are beating yourself for missing a 3-year step. Meanwhile, in those 3 years, it's not that you are not doing other things. So when you have challenges that are distracting you from doing what you're supposed to do, make sure that the time is not wasted. Make sure that you're acquiring other skills, you're acquiring other knowledge, you are still enhancing yourself. At no time are you just marking time. Just like Pastor explained today, backsliding doesn't mean moving back. It could even mean moving forward at a slower pace. Because if you are moving forward at a slower pace than the person you are supposed to be in sync with, the person keeps going further and further and further away from you. By going further and further away from you, you are backsliding, even though you are still going forward. So we must understand that for every human being, there is a purpose. And the important thing is to be able to discover that purpose and key all your activities into that purpose. And do not allow impediments to throw you off your course.
Man, first, I think it's been such a very wonderful session, because we have to begin to wrap up now. I just like to encourage someone out there. You've heard it all, and that's the essence of why we are here. And I want to particularly say thank you for sharing your story. And I would never have thought that you were once dyslexic.
I still am.
I mean,
you don't get cured of it. You walk around it.
Go back. We can always realign things. Things can fall. We can always rearrange things. Even when life hits and begins to distract us in ways we didn't imagine, we can always go back and do things. And another major lesson that we must not miss from here is that we must learn our truth and be able to face our truth, our deficiency, and be able to work on it to see how we can get it. And the beautiful part of what Doctor you said is that even in our deficiency, it can create strength in other areas. And these are things we need to begin to realign. Out of tune from what we learned today is sometimes we're working out of certain systems, the systems that we're supposed to work in reading with. We sort of go against tangents and things begin to go out of tune. Doctor, I want to say thank you for joining us. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for sharing your story. It's been a pleasure having you here. And that's the way we wrap it up right here. Kayode Sanni is my name. Hope to see you next week for another round of discussion right here on World Bank Kingdom Conversations. Till I see you next time, God bless you. Bye for now.